I would like to first thank each of you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to view this presentation. The purpose of this presentation is to give each county employee a first-hand look at the work that has been done towards addressing compensation inequities in our pay scale. In January of 2016, I was tasked by the Board of Commissioners to look at our pay scale and to look at the positions within it and identify any compensation issues that might have persisted. Upon identifying these issues, I was to then make recommendations for addressing them. In order to accomplish this, I chose to form a committee made up of 9 county employees. As everyone will recall, it's the same kind of committee structure that we enjoyed great success with the health insurance revisions and making those revisions, and as we have seen these revisions take place, we have seen our health plan again become sustainable. So the same school of thought went into looking at the compensation issues. Again, using Macon County employees in this committee format to help work through this thing and find fair and equitable solutions to compensation inequities within our current pay scale. The goals of the committee are straightforward. The first thing we wanted to do was identify the problems. We wanted to recommend fair and equitable solutions to these problems. We wanted to be in line with regional market in terms of compensation, and moving forward we wanted to be sure that we made note that there does need to continue to be maintenance on this pay plan as we move forward to be sure that we remain in line with the region and remain compensating all employees at levels that are supported by our regional market. With the presentation, I would like for each of us to become familiar with some terminology, as we'll be going back to this terminology throughout this presentation to explain the work accomplished by the committee. First, we're going to look at the Macon County pay scale. As you will see here in the left-hand column, there are 31 grades in the Macon County pay scale, ranging from grade 17 to a grade 48. And every position in the organization is assigned to one of these pay grades. As you move across this chart, you'll notice that there is a maximum salary, a minimum salary, and a range, which is the maximum salary minus the minimum salary for each pay grade. The range divided by 30 in the far right-hand column is referred to as a step. As you can see, each of the 31 pay grades have a maximum, a minimum, a range, and a range divided by 30, or a step. Pay plan compliance. To be 100% or fully compliant, the committee assumed that an employee should advance 1 step per year within their respective pay grade. The actual compliance is the employee's actual salary compared to the 100% or fully compliant salary. Let's take a look at it. Here you can see highlighted a grade 25 employee has a maximum salary of $46,097, a minimum salary of $30,731, giving this grade 25 a salary range of $15,366 and a range divided by 30, or a step, of $512.20. Again, the reason that the range is being divided by 30 is because we're assuming, in line with the retirement system, a full career with Macon County would be 30 years. So using this grade 25, let's look at a 100% or fully compliant pay as opposed to the actual compliance or an employee's actual salary. So let's assume employee at the grade 25 has 7 years of service. So to be fully compliant, we would take this 7 years of service and multiply it by $512.20. Again, that is assuming that this employee receives a full step increase every year. That's $3,585.40. When this is added back to the minimum, it gives you a 100% compliant or fully compliant salary of $34,316. Using the same employee, and say this employee is earning $31,000 per year, we take the actual salary of $31,000 and divide it by this 100% compliant salary of $34,316.40, which gives us a compliant rate or actual compliance of 90% with the pay plan. Compression. Compression occurs when there's only a small difference in pay between employees regardless of their skills or experience. As we looked within our pay scale and our current compensation system, compression was one of the main problems that persisted, and there were several contributors to this salary compression, one being several years between pay study analyses, two, a lack of maintenance policies for funding pay plans after initial implementation, and remarkably, approval of Springstead Option 2 in 2013 was one of the greatest contributors to this salary compression. So let's take a look at the history in the Springstead Classification and Compensation Study. This study did many great things for the organization. First of all, the pay scale that we just went over is a regionally competitive pay scale. With adoption of the Springstead Classification and Compensation Study, that pay scale, the minimums and maximums, were adjusted to bring us in line with our regional peer counties. Another thing this study did was it ensured that we were compensating everyone at the minimum level of their pay grade at a regionally competitive rate. In other words, everyone that was working below the newly established minimums brought on by the Springstead Classification and Compensation Study were brought up to those new minimum salary levels. The Springstead Classification and Compensation Study, the portion that was adopted, did not make compensation adjustments for employees based on time and position and overall service time, nor did it provide us with maintenance options moving forward to ensure that our pay scale remained in line and regionally competitive. The portion that was implemented was Option 2, and it was adopted on April 9th, 2013. As I stated earlier, it did increase the grade minimums and maximum by, on average, of 21%. It increased grade minimums and maximums on average by 21%. Again, those employees that were working below the newly established minimums, which happened to be about 55% of the workforce, was brought up to those newly established minimum salary levels. So it did a lot of great things. It also gave us the foundation to begin work on these 2016 Macon County Pay Plan revisions. We did not revisit or relitigate any of the work that Springstead accomplished, because it did accomplish, and like I said, it put us in the right position. But we did want to pick up where Springstead left off, and again we used that for a foundation to begin work in 2016. In a previous slide, we stated that the number one contributor to compression that we were experiencing in our organization, which again is only a small difference in pay between employees regardless of their time served, their years, or experience. And how did it do that? If you'll remember, a 100% or fully compliant salary was when each employee received a step per year. That was 100% compliance. As you look at this graph, you'll see on the x-axis it is years of service from 0 to 30. On the y-axis is percentage compliance with the pay plan. So our perfect world scenario, or the 100% compliant pay plan, is the red line. As you can see, regardless of years of service, the employee's percentage of compensation remains at 100, whether it's 0 years, 25 years, or 30 years. The blue line represents the actual compliance prior to adoption of the Springstead study. As you can see, every employee in the organization, whether it be 5 years, 15 years, 20 years, or 30 years, is being compensated below the 90% mark. So we're far below 100% compliance before Springstead Option 2 was implemented in 2013, and there is also a gradual compression here. As you can see, as the years of service increase with this blue line from 0 to 30, your percent compliance drifts further and further away from 100. So regardless of years of service, time served, experience that comes with those years of service, the employees, the longer serving employees continue to get compensated at a further percentage away from 100% compliance. The black line illustrates actual salaries in the organization or actual compliance after adoption of the Springstead study. And as you can see, going back to, we raised the minimums and maximums when Springstead was adopted, but the only people that received compensation increases were those employees that were working below the new minimums. So they were brought up to 100%, and as we will see, this typically tends to be those employees that had been in the organization 6 years or less. So while their salaries got brought up, the employees that were working within the newly established ranges, that salary was already at a level above that minimum, they did not receive a compensation adjustment, while their maximums for their grade were adjusted 21% up, so they fell further and further away from those new maximums. And as you can see, it had a tremendous effect on compression, and it exacerbated compression big time. You can see with the black line that the percent compliance is going away from that 100% mark at a far more drastic rate than it was prior to Springstead implementation. Here is another way of showing the information on the graph, what I just said. You look here at the longevity. Your 0 to 1 year employees are at 99% compliance. Again, those minimums, we're compensating those at above regionally competitive levels, as we will see moving through this presentation. Your 3 to 4 year employees are getting, our actual salaries are 96% compliant. When you get on down, you'll notice your 9 to 10 year employees, they're falling to 89% compliant. Your 12 to 13 year employees, they're at 87%. Look at the 20 to 21 year employees. On average, they're being compensated at 82%, or an actual compliance rate of 82%, which is far away from that 100% mark. And as you can see, as your longevity increases in this left-hand column, the percent compliance continues to trend downward. Again, this is another way of showing the same information. You can see here that your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 year employees, they're being compensated right at above 94%, which is the blue line, is 94% compliance, and that is our regionally competitive level. You can see as the years of service increase, this percentage of compliance goes down. I realize that there are some outliers, but when you get up into the 26, 27, and 30 year employees, there's only a small group there, so any outliers will throw that percentage of compliance off, since it is such a small set of employees in these extremely longer serving 27, 30 year categories. Here's what it looks like level. If you look at a maintenance worker 1, again, these are actual salaries. A new employee is hired in off the street at $22,932 annually with 0 years of service. Employee 4 is getting paid $23,855, or about $900 more than the employee coming in off the street, but employee 4 has 13.9 years of service. The same thing if you look at the sheriff's deputies. Here, a new deputy can get hired in off the street at $32,268, but the deputy that's been here 8.2 years is making about $700 more or $32,913. As you can see here, at the departmental level, compression is occurring because there is no acknowledgement for years of service and the value of that knowledge and experience gained as a result of those years of service with the organization. The committee chose to evaluate 4 different options when looking at ways to address this compression issue. The first option evaluated was Springstead option 3, and this was proposed by Springstead in their classification and compensation study. However, the board chose not to implement option 3 of the Springstead study, and this was again a 0.5% increase in salary each year for time served in position. The second method that we looked at was a modified Springstead option. We took the same school of thought that was used by Springstead in option 3, but rather than say 0.5% increase for each year in position, the committee said let's change that to 0.5% increase for each year of service. So the employee's salary would be multiplied by 0.5% for each year they had in service in option 2, as opposed to Springstead's recommendation of a 0.5% for each year in position. So let's take a look at each of these. The first one, Springstead years in position, as you can see, it actually makes compression worse, as with the black line is, again, that is our current organizational percent compliance with all the employees' salaries. If we chose to move forward and implement Springstead years in position compliance, as you can see down here at the 20-year employee mark, we're actually becoming more compressed than we are right now. So that was not a good option. We also found that in some cases it penalized an employee for getting a promotion, because if an employee had been working here 15 years and at year 16 was promoted to a new position, they would have only received a compensation adjustment from Springstead based on that 1 year served in the new position. In other words, the 15 years that they had served prior, there would be no acknowledgement given to that with the implementation of the Springstead study. As you can see here, the Springstead years of service option that we chose to look at, again, that was the committee making an adjustment to the Springstead years in position recommendation. It did help to alleviate compression. However, it in some cases tended to overvalue the time served by an employee at the organization. In other words, if the employee had served 18 years making $32,000 a year in a grade 25, and this employee was then promoted to a grade 27, we would have multiplied a 0.5% for each year of service based on that new position or that higher salary grade, when the time served, the actual time served before that, was at a much less salary and much lower grade. So we felt that while we do need to acknowledge time served with the organization, it needed to be done at an appropriate level and actually be compensating an employee for the salary and the grade they were at during these years of service. The next 2 options that we looked at was a fully funded or 100% compliant pay plan. And we chose with this to apply calculated longevity. And we'll go over that a little bit more in a second. But again, the fully funded or 100% compliant pay plan, as you will recall, is the employee is in the grade 25, like the example we showed, and each year they're moving in the organization, they're moving 1 step. The calculated longevity, as we go over in a second, is going to do what the years of service option did not do. And it is going to actually recognize those times served at lower grades and lower salary levels and give credit based on the actual salary of the employee as they were moving through the organization. Option 4 or method 4 was a partially funded or 94% compliant pay plan. And as you will notice, this also, in addition to calculated longevity, took into consideration our regional market comparisons, or the other counties that we looked at around us, and we actually looked at how they were funding their pay plans and what percentage of compliance they were at. And that is where the 94% comes into play, and we will go over that a little later as well. But the calculated longevity at 100% compliance, as you will see, has a dramatic impact on compression. It alleviates it 100%, as each employee is getting compensated 100% of what they should be getting compensated at, regardless of time served with the organization. This was a very expensive option, and it was out of line with our regional market comparisons. So we look at the 94%, or the partially funded pay plan, and second to the perfect world scenario of a 100% compliant pay plan, when everybody is making 100% of what they should be making, regardless of what is going on in our region, this option did the most for compression of any other option that we looked at. So what is calculated longevity? Let's look at some examples. Here's an employee 1. Their current position is a maintenance mechanic 1. It's at a grade 25. They're making $32,000 a year. This employee, when you look at the employment history, began working with Macon County as a maintenance worker 1, or at a grade 19, where they served for 5 years. They were promoted at year 5 to a maintenance worker 2, or a grade 22, where they served another 5 years. Their current position of a maintenance mechanic 1, they have been there for the last 5 years that they have served with the organization. So how does calculated longevity come into play? First, we're going to look at when they were first hired on, and as you will see in the box up at the upper right hand corner, they were hired on as a maintenance worker 1 at a grade 19. So a grade 19 is 74% of a grade 25. So when you look at the 5 years served at this maintenance worker 1, we can't overvalue it. We have to look at what it actually is, and that actually is, when you look at the time they're serving now in the grade 25, that grade 19 is 74% of that. So those 5 years that they served at that grade 19 will be multiplied by 74%, giving 3.7 years of service. The 5 years that they served at the grade 22, you will see that a grade 22, when you take the grade 22 minimum and divide it by the grade 25 minimum, is 86% of a grade 25. So the 5 years they served at the grade 22 will get multiplied by 86%, making that 4.3 years in calculated longevity. Of course, the 5 years they served at the grade 25 is 100%, so that is 5 years of calculated longevity. So when you look, although this employee has 15 years of overall service, the calculated longevity is 13.05 years. But this 13.05 years will be credited at a grade 25 and at the grade 25 step level. So if you multiply, or if you take the grade 25 minimum of $30,731, and then you look at the step amount of $512 for 20 cents, and you multiply that by the calculated longevity of 13.05 years, you're going to get $6,684 that will be added back to the grade minimum. So 100% compliant would be $37,055. When you look at the employee's actual compliance, they're currently being paid at $32,000. So when you divide that by the $37,055 that is representative of a 100% compliance salary, That is 86.35%. That is the employee's actual compliance rate. Again, and we will look at these peer group comparisons in a minute and regionally competitive levels, but that was 94% is what we are recommending. That is what the region will support, and as you can see, this 86% is well below the 94% recommended. So when we take the fully compliant pay plan salary of $37,055, multiply it by 94%, we get $34,831. So this employee will receive a $2,831 increase. Again, we're adding that $2,831 to that $32,000. Employee 2, current salary of $31,500. They're working as a maintenance mechanic 1. They were hired on as a maintenance worker 1 at a grade 19 and worked there for 7 years. They were then promoted and worked 3 years at the maintenance mechanic 1 or grade 25 level. Again, when you look at calculated longevity, a grade 19 is 74% of a grade 25. So the 7 years that they served at this grade 19, because we're addressing it on the grade 25 level, we have to say that the 7 years served there is 74% of a grade 25, making that 5.2 years. The 3 years they served at the grade 25 is 100%, or a full 3 years. So the calculated longevity here is 8.2 years of service. So when you take that 8.2 years down here in the full pay plan salary, we look, it had the grade 25, the current minimum is $30,731. When we take calculated longevity into play, the 8.2 years, we're multiplying it by the step level at a grade 25. So that gives us $4,212. We then add that back to the grade 25 minimum of $30,371 to give us a 100% or fully compliant salary of $34,583. Again, that is the perfect world scenario. When you take the employee's current salary of $31,500 and divide it by this 100% compliant salary, you will see that the employee right now is making 91% of their 100% or fully compliant mark. This is still below the 94% recommended, so when we adjust that and take the full pay plan salary and multiply it by 94%, that is again the full pay plan salary of $34,583 multiplied by 94%, you're going to get a salary of $32,508. Again, that is the recommended salary. So this employee will receive a salary increase of $1,008, making them regionally compliant. Here, employee 3, maintenance mechanic 1. They are currently making $30,731. They have served at a grade 25 as a maintenance worker 1 for 2 years. So, calculated longevity again is going to be 100%. So when you look at the $30,731 minimum and you add the calculated longevity, which again is 2 years, full credit, $512.20 step, when you multiply that by 2, you get $1,024.40. When you add this back to the minimum, that gives you a fully compliant salary of $31,755.40. When you take the employee's current salary of $30,731, divide it by the $31,755 or 100% compliant salary, you will see that this employee is making 96.7%. This percentage is above the 94% recommendation based on our regional comparisons. Thus, no salary increase would be recommended for this employee. Their salary will stay the same. Now, we've talked a lot about regional comparisons. Let's take a little look at the region and show you how that we got to this regionally compliant salary level of 94%. We compared ourselves to Watauga County, McDowell County, Haywood County, Jackson County, and Cherokee County. Each of these counties were used in the Springstead study, and we were able to go back and communicate with each of these counties, get their positions, their employee salaries that were serving in these positions, as well as their years of service for each of their employees. So we had actual salary information and actual service time information for every employee in each of these counties. And in doing that, we looked just like we did at our pay plan, and we said, hey, how compliant are they based on their years of service and the salaries their employees are making? We found in doing this that there was a range of 89.5 to 95.4, and this was a normal range of compliance on average, a low of 89 and a high of 95. When we looked at where Macon County actually was at, we were at 92%. And again, we applied that formula that we just discussed to every employee in the organization based on where they should be at 100%. And when we got that and arrived at that using the calculated longevity formula, we were at 92.6% of where we needed to be. That was right in the middle of what we were seeing in the region. However, Macon County has historically been a leader in this region in terms of employee service and how we take care of our employees. So we wanted to go toward the higher end, and that is why we recommended 94%. We also looked at our benefits. Our longevity was in line with other counties. Our 401k was in line with other counties. Our retirement was in line. Our health insurance, we found, was above average. A lot of these counties give a flat contribution rate. In other words, they pay the same amount per employee regardless of their dependent status, and a lot of times that leads to employees paying 100% of their dependent coverage. And as we know, in Macon County pays 60% for your dependent coverage, and the employee only has to pay 40%. I think there was all counties except for one paid 100% of employee coverage, and Macon County, as we know, pays 100% of the employee coverage. And when you look at the actual health plan and the benefit that we get out of that health plan, it is far superior to any health plan you will see in the region. So after we evaluated each of these methods and evaluated them in comparison and looking at the regional counties that surround us, we were able to put forth some recommendations. And in looking at those, this graph, the black line is our current salary level. That is our current percentage of compliance with the pay plan. Springstead Method 1, as we went over, with 0.5% per year in position. Again, that actually penalized employees that could have received a promotion during that time period. And as we discussed earlier, you will see that it further contributes to compression in those longer serving employees. The light blue line, the Springstead years of service option, as we have discussed earlier, it does alleviate compression. However, it tends to overvalue time served at the current position. In other words, if an employee had served 15 years at a grade 20, but we were giving them entire credit based on their new salary at a grade 25, that is the whole reason and the whole school of thought behind the calculated longevity model, which this committee put forth in method 3 and 4. It tended to overvalue the time of employees served in the organization. So that was not a good option. Method 4, our partially funded pay plan, is the dark blue line that is highlighted in gray. Again, it employs both the calculated longevity model and keeps us in line with the region. It is the dark blue line highlighted in gray. As you can see, it eliminates compression the most of any method other than the method 3, or the fully funded 100% compliant pay plan, which, as we have discussed and as we'll see later, is a very expensive option, and it is not in line with what we're seeing in the region. In evaluating these, each committee member had a ranking sheet, and that ranking sheet looked just like this. As you can see, it lists method 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, method 3, and method 4 in the very top column. These are the rankings that were given by the committee for each of these methods as we went through and evaluated them. The reason that the years in position and years of service option have a method 1B and 2B is because Springstead was not very clear on if moving forward they wanted a 0.5% increase each year moving forward based on the employee's salary, or they wanted to do a 0.5% increase per year in position the first year and then move forward with a step increase. So we assumed that it was just left unclear, so we looked at it both ways, and that is why method 1, Springstead years in position, and method 2 have an alternative option there. When you look at what these were rated on and how we looked at this, we looked at impact on compression, we looked at equitability to employees, we looked at whether or not it was in line with the regional market. We looked at how sustainable it was and how it improved compression. We looked at how fundable each one of them were. And we looked at using these methods to advance employees through the pay scale. We looked at how sustainable that would be financially. And as you can see in the bottom column here, that is the bottom 6 columns, that is what we looked at. Each of these, impact on compression, equitability to employees, they were assigned a weight based on how important they were to the committee. Impact on compression was most important. We had to fix that problem. Equitability to employees was second. In line with the regional market was third. How it continued to improve compression moving forward was fourth. How fundable it was, in other words, we had to implement this without an ad valorem tax increase. So we had to recognize that and make sure that we could do that without a tax increase. And we wanted to make sure that using this as a tool that we would be able to fund it without a tax increase. As you can see to the far right, when you look at the ranking per committee goal column, and that is the last one below the purple line, you'll see that the fully funded or 100% compliant pay plan, it was the best as far as impacting compression. It was the best as far as equitability to employees. In other words, each employee would be making 100% of what they should be making. When we looked at how in line it would be with the region, that is where we started seeing this method fall off significantly. As you will see here, it was again far superior. It would continue to alleviate compression moving forward. It was not fundable. We could not implement this option without an ad valorem tax increase. So that is where you see the 94% in the far right hand column again start moving ahead. And financially it was not sustainable either. We could not fund a 100% compliant pay plan year after year. So the fundability and the fact that it was not in line with what we were seeing in the region is what caused the 100% or fully compliant pay plan to take a back seat to the 94% that we are recommending. The low score wins here, as you can see, and like we had on the top column, the 94% came in at 5.9 points, and the 100% took a second place with 8.07 points. And again, the lower score wins here. Some notable things that I do want to address with you. The number of employees realizing an increase in salary with the 94% option is 181. We have 363 employees in the organization. Only 181, however, will receive a salary increase. The remainder of those employees are already making 94% or above the regionally compliant level. So 181 employees are the only ones that will receive a salary increase as part of this study. The average increase per affected employee, when you look at everyone receiving an increase and average that, it's about $2,600 for those 181 people. And again, those are your typically longer serving employees that have put time in the organization, and those employees that were not affected by the implementation of Springstead Option 2, as we have discussed. So, the final committee recommendations will be to implement Method 4 as proposed, which will bring all employees up to a minimum of 94% compliance with the approved pay plan. We're going to continue using the calculated longevity formula and our regional comparisons when assessing future salary adjustments or promotions. We're going to be sure that we remain in line with the region and in line with our pay plan as well, to prevent some of the same problems from happening that we're seeing right now. This compensation study group is going to continue working in the coming fiscal year and develop some performance measures that can be used with calculated longevity to evaluate future salary adjustments. In other words, year after year moving forward, it's not going to be get everybody to 94% or give that step increase every year. It is going to be, let's look at the employee's performance, the department's performance, and you take that into consideration as well along with this calculated longevity formula when we move forward and discuss salary adjustments. As I said earlier, 181 employees will be receiving salary increases as a result of this study. Those that are at or above 94% compliance will receive 16 hours of annual leave in fiscal year 17. However, again, they will not be receiving a compensation adjustment as a part of this study. Again, I would like to thank each of you for taking time to view this presentation today. I hope it's been informative. I hope you understand the methodologies used, the methodologies that we evaluated, and how we arrived at what we feel is an appropriate solution to address the compensation inequities within the organization. We have used what was previously accomplished by Springstead and picked up where Springstead left off to complete the organizational compensation study. Moving forward, the work of the committee will now focus toward what we can use in addition as it relates to performance to make sure that we advance employees appropriately through the pay scale, and that Macon County remains a regionally competitive and leader in Western North Carolina and the state of North Carolina in terms of compensation to our employees, who are our greatest asset. A full copy of the salary study is available online as an appendix to the county manager's fiscal year 16-17 budget message. I hope that you will look at this and read it in detail, as it explains in depth this presentation and the work of the committee. Any questions you have, feel free to email me at droland@maconnc.org, come by my office, or call me on the phone. I'll be more than happy to address any questions with you.